Be me, Rebecca, 36, corporate lawyer. Spent my entire adult life fighting for equality in a profession that still pays women 82 cents on the dollar. Worked my ass off to make partner at a firm where the executive committee is 11 men and 2 women. Believed the system could change if enough of us pushed hard enough. Then I watched what happened to Michael, my older brother, the guy who taught me to ride a bike, who beat up Tommy Hendricks in 8th grade when he snapped my bra strap. Never thought I'd see the day when everything I believed about fairness and justice would crash headfirst into reality like a freight train through fog. This is that story. Michael was always the responsible one growing up. I was the mouthy kid who got detention for arguing with teachers about discriminatory dress codes. He was the guy who showed up early, stayed late, never made waves. Worked in IT management, decent salary, nice apartment, drove a 5-year-old Honda because he believed in saving. Met Sarah at some friend's barbecue in 2014. She seemed fine to me the few times I met her. Graphic designer, into yoga, laughed at his terrible jokes. They dated for about 14 months before she got pregnant. Michael was nervous but excited, started buying baby books, painted the nursery in his apartment this soft yellow color. I remember him showing me paint swatches, asking my opinion like it mattered. Emma was born April 2015. Michael signed the birth certificate at the hospital. Why wouldn't he? Sarah told him it was his daughter. They'd been together over a year. He had no reason to doubt. This is important for later. This fucking piece of paper he signed while holding what he thought was his newborn daughter. First few months seemed okay from the outside. Michael was exhausted, working full-time and doing night feedings. Sarah stayed home with Emma. He'd send me photos of the baby, those weird, slightly blurry ones new parents take of every single facial expression. But something was off with Sarah. She got distant, started arguments about nothing. Michael tried couples counseling. She refused. By the time Emma was 7 months old, Sarah moved out. Took the baby, got her own apartment across town. Filed for child support within 3 weeks. That's when Michael's life started its slow-motion collapse. Court ordered him to pay $1,240 per month. Based on his salary at the time, seemed reasonable to the judge. Never mind that he also had rent, student loans from his bachelor's degree, a car payment. The math didn't work, but family court doesn't care about math. His paychecks got garnished automatically. $1,240 vanished before he even saw it. He started picking up freelance work on weekends, barely sleeping. I'd call him and hear the exhaustion in his voice. But he paid, every month, because that's who Michael is. Because he believed Emma was his daughter, and he wanted to do right by her. Sarah started making visitation difficult. He'd show up at the agreed time, she wouldn't answer the door. He'd reschedule his whole weekend, she'd cancel last minute. Filed formal visitation requests with the court. Took 6 months to get a hearing. Judge gave him every other weekend and 1 weeknight. Sarah violated it constantly. He'd drive 40 minutes to her place. She'd text that Emma was sick right as he arrived. Kept a log of every violation. Brought it to his lawyer. Lawyer said unless he wanted to spend $15,000 on a custody battle, he'd probably lose anyway. Not much could be done. This went on for 2 years. Michael paid every month, got to see Emma maybe twice a month when Sarah felt like allowing it. Then Sarah posted photos on social media. Emma's 2nd birthday party. Some guy in most of the pictures, holding Emma, cutting the cake with Sarah. My brother wasn't invited to his daughter's birthday. He started asking questions. Carefully, because Sarah would use any conflict as reason to restrict his visitation further. Found out she'd been with this guy, Brandon, for over a year. Emma called him Dada. Michael asked Sarah point blank if he was Emma's biological father. She got defensive, accused him of trying to abandon his responsibilities. Said biology doesn't matter. He's on the birth certificate. He's legally the father. Something about the way she said it made his stomach drop. He took a DNA test. Those home ones you order online. Swabbed Emma's cheek during one of his rare visits. Results came back. 0% probability of paternity. He wasn't her father. Not biologically, not genetically, not in any measurable, scientific way. I remember the phone call when he told me, his voice completely flat, like someone had scooped out his insides. She's not mine, Beck. She was never mine. I didn't know what to say. I worked in corporate law, not family law, but I knew enough to know this was bad. Told him to get a court-admissible DNA test immediately. He did. Paid $500 for a court-certified paternity test through proper channels. Results identical, 0% probability. He filed with the court to terminate child support and remove his name from the birth certificate. Surely this would fix it. Scientific proof he'd been defrauded. Proof Sarah had lied, had known or should have known he wasn't the father. Proof he'd been paying $1,240 a month for 2 years for a child that wasn't his. The court denied his petition. I read the decision myself, couldn't believe what I was seeing. Judge acknowledged the DNA evidence, acknowledged Michael was not the biological father, ruled he was still the presumed father because he'd signed the birth certificate, ruled that Emma had come to rely on his support, ruled that terminating support would be detrimental to the child, ruled he had to continue paying. I sat in my office, this place, where I'd fought dozens of battles for contract fairness and equitable dealing, stared at that court decision until the words blurred. This was insane. This violated every principle of justice I'd built my career on. You can't enforce a contract obtained through fraud in business law. Material misrepresentation voids agreements, but family court operates in some alternate dimension where normal rules don't apply, Michael appealed. Borrowed $8,000 from our parents for a better lawyer. Appeal denied. State law was clear. If you sign the birth certificate, you're the father. Biology, irrelevant. There's a window to challenge paternity, usually within 2 years. Michael had missed it by 4 months. 4 fucking months. Because Sarah had stonewalled his questions just long enough. Because he'd trusted her just long enough. The payments continued. $1,240 per month, every month, garnished automatically. For a child who wasn't his, to support a woman who'd lied to him. While Sarah lived with Brandon, the actual biological father, who paid nothing, who got to play dad while Michael paid the bills. I started watching Michael deteriorate. Lost 15 pounds in 2 months. Stopped showing up to family dinners. His apartment became this depressing cave, empty beer bottles on the counter. He stopped talking about the future, stopped making plans, just worked and paid and existed. His company downsized in 2018. He lost his job. Tried to get the child support reduced due to unemployment. Took 3 months for a hearing. Judge reduced it to $890 per month. He was making $0 and still owed $890 monthly. Started racking up arrears immediately. Unemployment paid $1,600 a month. Child support took $890, left him $710 for rent, food, utilities, everything. His credit score collapsed. Missed car payments, car got repossessed. Missed rent, got evicted. Moved into our parents' basement at 35 years old. I'd stop by and find him just sitting there in the dark. Not watching TV, not reading, just sitting, staring at nothing. Mum cried to me, asked if I could do something. I'm a fucking lawyer, and I couldn't do anything. Every attorney I consulted said the same thing. State law is brutal on this. Once you're the presumed father, you're trapped. Biology doesn't matter. Fraud doesn't matter. Truth doesn't matter. That signature on the birth certificate is a life sentence. Michael found a new job eventually, paid less than his old one, had to disclose his credit issues during background checks, lost out on better positions because of it. The garnishment followed him to the new job automatically, $1,240 again, based on his new salary calculation. Plus they added extra to pay down the arrears he'd accumulated during unemployment. $1,400, $50 total taken from each paycheck. He brought home maybe $2,100 a month after taxes and garnishment. This continued for 7 years. 7 years of payments. 7 years of financial destruction. Do the math. $1,240 times 84 months. $104,160. $104,000 for a child that wasn't his. Paid to a woman who'd committed fraud, while the biological father paid $0, while the courts acknowledged the fraud and enforced the payments anyway. Here's where my internal crisis really started. I'd spent my entire adult life fighting against systems that disadvantaged women. Fought for reproductive rights, for equal pay, for recognition that women's experiences of injustice were real and systemic. Argued with men who claimed the system was biased against them. Rolled my eyes at men's rights complaints. Thought they were mostly bitter guys who couldn't handle losing traditional privilege. But this was systemic. This wasn't one bad judge or one unusual case. This was the law, working as designed. Laws written to protect children, sure, but applied so rigidly that they destroyed innocent people. And it was almost exclusively men getting destroyed this way. I started researching, couldn't help myself. Found cases across the country with similar facts. Men paying for children proven not to be theirs. Courts consistently ruling that biology doesn't override the birth certificate signature. In the best interests of the child became a magic phrase that justified any injustice. Found statistics suggesting 1 to 3% of children are being raised by men who unknowingly aren't the biological father. That's potentially hundreds of thousands of men. How many had signed birth certificates based on lies? How many were trapped, like Michael? I brought this up once at a firm lunch, carefully, trying to sound out how people would react. Mentioned my brother's situation to 3 colleagues, all women, all progressive. 2 immediately got defensive. Well, he should have been more careful about who he slept with. The child needs support regardless of biology. Men need to take responsibility. The 3rd looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. I pushed back, asked how it was different from any other fraud. One colleague literally said, "It's different when children are involved." As if the magic word children meant justice no longer applied. As if Michael's life, Michael's mental health, Michael's financial destruction didn't matter. Because protecting one child from the consequences of her mother's lies was more important. I went home that night and cried. Angry tears, frustrated tears. Because I couldn't reconcile this. I still believed everything I'd always believed about women's systemic disadvantages. Those were real. I'd lived them, fought them, bore the scars. But this was also real. Michael's destroyed credit was real. His depression was real. The $104,160 he'd never get back was real. The system had failed him. The system was set up in a way that made this possible. And pointing that out didn't make me a traitor to feminism. It made me someone who actually believed in equality. Michael's payments finally ended last year. Emma turned 7, state formula changed. Also, Sarah married Brandon finally. Combined household income reduced Michael's obligation. His last payment was September 2023. He took me to dinner to celebrate. We went to this cheap Thai place near his apartment. He still lives alone, still drives a 15-year-old car, still has a credit score in the 500s. Talked about maybe starting to save for a house someday. He's 40 now. Should be in his prime earning years, building wealth. Instead, he's starting from scratch. Financially, where most people are at 23. Except he's got damaged credit, gaps in his resume, and 7 years of psychological trauma. He doesn't date. Told me he doesn't trust it anymore. Doesn't trust that someone won't lie. Doesn't trust that the system won't destroy him again. I asked if he ever saw Emma. He shook his head. Sarah cut off all contact as soon as payments ended. Number blocked, moved without forwarding address. Emma is 8 now, probably doesn't remember him. Probably thinks Brandon is her real father. Maybe that's better. I don't know. What I do know is this. I'm still a feminist. I still believe in fighting for women's equality. I still show up to firm meetings and push for better parental leave policies and call out bias in performance reviews. But I can't pretend anymore that injustice only flows one direction. I can't pretend the system is only broken when it hurts women. Michael was victimized by Sarah's lie, yes, but also by a legal system that chose bureaucratic efficiency over justice. That decided a signature obtained under false pretenses was more important than scientific truth. That valued the best interests of the child, while completely ignoring the interests of an innocent man. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is how few people care. How many of my colleagues, my friends, my fellow advocates hear this story and immediately start explaining why it's different, why it's justified, why Michael should have been more careful, as if being in a relationship and trusting your partner is somehow negligent, as if signing a birth certificate for what you believe is your child is a crime deserving lifelong financial punishment. I've started speaking up more, not loudly, not making it my whole identity, but when conversations turn to family court, to child support, to paternity, I tell Michael's story. Watch people's faces as they try to reconcile their biases with the facts. Some get it immediately. You can see the moment it clicks. Others double down, refuse to acknowledge the injustice. Because acknowledging, it means admitting the system they've defended isn't perfect, means admitting that sometimes men get fucked over too. And for some people, that's impossible to accept. It would crack their entire world view. I get it, because it cracked mine. Took me 2 years of watching my brother suffer to really confront it, to sit with the cognitive dissonance until I could hold both truths simultaneously. Women face systemic discrimination, true. Men can also face systemic injustice, also true. These facts don't cancel each other out. They coexist. And if you actually believe in equality, in justice, in fairness, you have to acknowledge both. Michael will never get that money back, never get those 7 years back, never fully recover his credit or his trust or his mental health. Sarah will never face consequences for fraud. The court will never admit it was wrong. The system will never change unless enough people start giving a shit. And that's the thing that keeps me up at night. I've dedicated my life to fighting injustice. But I was blind to this particular injustice until it destroyed someone I love. How many other blind spots do I have? How many other ways is the system broken that I can't see because it doesn't affect me or people like me. How many other Michaels are out there? Paying for children that aren't theirs, trapped by signatures they made in good faith, destroyed financially and psychologically. While people like who I used to be dismiss their suffering as whining, as inability to accept responsibility, as deserved somehow. I'm writing this because I don't know what else to do. I can't fix what happened to Michael, can't change the laws, at least not alone, but I can tell the story, can force people to confront it, can challenge the automatic dismissal that happens when men talk about being victimized by family court. Because it's real, it happened to my brother, it's still happening to thousands of men. And if feminism means anything, if equality means anything, then it has to mean giving a shit about this too, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it challenges your priors, even when it means admitting you were wrong. I was wrong, I didn't take this seriously until it affected my family. I dismissed concerns I should have listened to. I assumed bias only flowed one direction. And I'm sorry for that. To Michael, obviously. But also to everyone else I didn't believe. Everyone else whose story I heard and rationalized away. I believe you now. I see how the system failed you, and I'm sorry it took my brother's destruction for me to open my eyes. Michael came over last Sunday. We watched a movie with our parents, ate Mom's cooking. He seemed okay, was laughing at Dad's bad puns, but I caught him staring off a few times. That distant look he gets, the weight of 7 years sitting on his shoulders. After dinner, he helped me carry dishes to the kitchen, thanked me for listening, for believing him, said it meant more than I knew, that so many people had dismissed what happened, told him it was his fault for trusting Sarah, told him biology doesn't matter, he should pay anyway, told him to man up and stop complaining. His voice cracked a little when he said it. This man who taught me to stand up for myself, who supported every crazy campaign I took on in high school and college, who never once told me I was too loud or too aggressive or too much, broken by a system that didn't care about his truth. I hugged him, told him I'd keep telling his story, keep pushing back when people tried to justify what happened, keep fighting for the law to change. He nodded, tried to smile, but we both know change comes slowly, too slowly for him. The damage is done. Maybe I can help prevent the next Michael, the next guy who trusts the wrong person and signs a birth certificate, who gets trapped by laws that prioritize everything except truth and justice. Maybe I can push my colleagues to care, to see this as the systemic issue it is, to stop reflexively defending a broken system just because changing it might be uncomfortable, maybe. Or maybe I'm just shouting into the void, one corporate lawyer who figured out way too late that justice is more complicated than she thought. That being right about one thing doesn't make you right about everything. That you can fight for equality and still miss massive blind spots, until they destroy someone you love.